We begin the Gemara today on Daf Lamed Vav Amud Aleph, about 10 lines down from the top of the Amud. Going back to what it said in the Mishnah, V'ha'edim chaismin ala get mipnei tikkun olam. The Edim signed the get only because the takana, that Rabbi Gamliel Azakan was misakin, the tikkun olam. Okay, so the Gemara explains here, how could you say that Edim signed a get only because of a takana of Rabbi Gamliel? Mipnei tikkun olam. This is Rabbi Gamliel that instituted that Edim should sign a get. Dairaisi, this is Minat Torah. Why? Because there's a pasuk that says, D'chsiv, v'kosav, b'sefer, v'chosum, that you write in a document and you sign it. This is actually not a pasuk in Chumash, even though the Gemara uses the term Dairaisa, but the Gemara sometimes uses this term Dairaisa, and it's a pasuk in Novi. This is a pasuk in Yirmiyah, where he's telling the Yidden before the Churban, the Nevuah, that the Churban is going to take place, and they're going to be expelled from Eretz Yisrael, but then they're going to return. And therefore he's advising them and telling them you could buy fields, buy properties, but write documents and have Edim sign them, so when you come back to Eretz Yisrael after the Churban, and then you'll come back eventually, you'll have proof of what properties belong to you. So what is he telling them? That what is a valid document to prove this? You write it and you sign it. You have to have Edim to sign it. So from this we understand that the Gemara's question is that this is regarding a shtar used for money. This is regarding any document, including a get as well. In order for it to be a kosher shtar, a get is a form of a shtar, so it has to have a signature on it. So how can we say that the signature is just tikkun olam? Amar Rabbe, so Rabbe answers, Lo tzriche le Rabbe Loza. So our Mishnah here is following the opinion of Rabbe Loza, as we had many times before in the previous Perek. The Omar, Rabbe Loza's opinion is, Edim is Sirakarti. It's the Edim when you give the get. They're the ones that make the get a kosher get. You don't need Edim to sign the get at all. Tekinu Rabbanon, Eidichsim, according to his opinion. So Rabbi Gamliel, the Rabbanon, they instituted that you should have Edim sign the get, Mipnei Tikkun Olam. For Tikkun Olam, what is the Tikkun Olam? The Zimnin, the Maisi Sadi. What happens if the Edim that was there when you gave the get passed away? Inami Zimnin Dazl Medina Sayam, or if they left town, they went overseas, and now you have to prove that this get is a kosher get and that you gave it to the Isha. What are you going to do? You don't have any Edim here that can prove it. So, but if you have the signatures on the get, that will serve enough as a proof that this get is kosher and that she got it from her husband. So it's a takana de Rabbanan. So the Rishayim over here and earlier, Taisus before explained that if a woman holds a get in her hands and it has signatures on it, so then there's a chazakah that she got this get from her husband. We're not concerned about the fact that maybe she picked up this get from the floor, or maybe she just took it out of the drawer, but if she has it in her hands, she probably got it from her husband. And the fact that it has signatures, so we know, what are those signatures? Those signatures are that the husband set to write this get, and it's an authentic get. So the fact that it's in her hands, that can serve enough as a raya that she got this get properly, and she's divorced. So you won't need the Eidei Mesira that may not be here at all. Okay, that's the pshat of here. So Rashi explains, according to this, what the Gemara is saying is that the pasuk we brought before, v'kosav v'sefer v'chosam, is Yirmiyah just giving an eitzah tova. He was giving them good advice. He's not telling you a halacha that a document of any sort must have a signature. Adarab, according to Rabbi Lazar, a document does not need a signature. You just need Eidei Mesira. That's one pshat, Rabba's pshat. Rav Yosef Amar, Rav Yosef says there's a completely different pshat in the Mishnah. Afilu teime l'Rab Meir. I could even tell you that our Mishnah goes according to Rab Meir. Again, Rab Meir hiskinu. What does the Mishnah mean to say? You have to read the Mishnah differently. That according to Rab Meir, what was instituted is shiyu edim mefarshin shemisayim begittin. That the edim should spell out their names when they sign a get. Mipnei tikkun olam, for tikkun olam, that it should be easy to verify the signatures on a get. And the Gemara brings a braisa that says how edim used to sign a get. Tanya, as it says in the Braisa, in the beginning, when a person signed a document, he didn't even sign his name. He just signed Ani Pliny Aid. He just put his handwriting basically, without an actual signature. Some even actually take out the word Pliny, without Pliny. Ani Chasamti Aid. Now, how could you verify what value does such a signature have if you don't even have the name of the person? So it does have a certain value because of the handwriting. Now, im ksav yodoi yoytze mimokem acher kosher. If you have another document that was already verified, and it's the same handwriting as this handwriting here when he writes these words, ani chasamti eid, then the get will be kosher. But vimlav, if you can't compare it to his handwriting in a different place, then puzzle. Then this get will be puzzle. So that's how you can verify it. Or l'chayda, you could also verify it by bringing two edim that recognize this handwriting. But now, Amar Rabbi Gamliel came and said that it's much better that they should sign with their names. Takana Gedayle Eskinu, that there's a very important takana that they instituted, Shiyu Mefashin Shemisayim Begittin, that they should spell out their names regarding a get when they sign a get. Mipnei Tikkun Olam. For Tikkun Olam, what's the Tikkun Olam? That once you have your name written in the get, so now if that aid himself shows up and says, yes, this is my name, I signed it, so then we trust him, and that itself verifies the signature. If you don't know who the Eidim are, B'chlal, it just says, Ani Chasamti Eid. So the Eid himself will not be able to verify his signature. You're going to have to compare his signature to another handwriting, or maybe get two Eidim to verify. But now it just makes it easier to verify that you know who the Eid is. You can call him and ask him, is this your handwriting? It's mashma here that once they instituted that you must put down your name, so it's not only not enough to just write Ani Chasamti Eid, but you must have your name. You can't make any other siman, any other sign, any other picture, anything. So the Gemara asks, is that true? That they were masakin that you must put your name, but without any other siman, another siman will not be good. But for Rav, when Rav signed, Tzaya Kura, a kavra maybe, read it. He would sign with the shape of a fish. That's what he signed. A fish has a good sign, as it says here in the Mefarshim, that there's no ayin hara on fish. That's how we would sign. But Rab Chanina, Tzayir Charusa. Rab Chanina would make a picture of a branch from a tree. Rav Chiste, Samach. Rav Chiste used to just put the letter Samach. Rav Hoshia, Ayin. Rav Hoshia, just the letter Ayin. It seems like that they would sign one letter of their name. Rabbi Baravuna, Tzayir Makusa. Rabbi Baravuna made a picture of a sail from a boat. So we see that these Chachamim did not put down their name. They put down various different simonim for their name. And that was their trademark, their signature. So l'chayda, this should be good enough. And says the Gemara, Shani Rabbanon, the Bekin Simanayo. These Rabbanon are different because everyone knew that it's them. Everyone knew their siman. So when you saw this siman on the get, you knew who it was, and therefore you can be Mekayim the get just by calling them and asking them, did you make this picture? So for these Chachamim, it was good. But just down for a regular person, he's going to make this kind of picture, and he's not known to signing with this kind of picture, so then it's worthless. You have to, the takana has to be fulfilled to put your name. You're saying that now it got known, everybody knows that these simonim, that Rav made a picture of a fish and so on, but in the beginning, how did they even start signing this way? When they made that picture the first time, nobody knew that they were accustomed to having this shape for their name or for their signature, so how did it get known? And it says the Gemara Bediski, because in other letters, not Ashtar, in Stam and other letters that they wrote, they would always sign this way. So from other letters that they wrote, Rashi here says the Stam letters, Ger Shloimim or Shailus Tshuvas that they wrote, they would sign with this kind of a sign. So everybody knew then when it came to a get or a real document, when they had to put their signature, they were able to use these signs. Going back to the Mishnah said the last thing was Hillel, Hiskin, Peruzbol, V'cholo. Hillel was Mesakin, the Takana of Peruzbol. So here, the next plata, so we're going to learn about Peruzbol. It brings here what's the source of this concept of Peruzbol. Tanan Asam, so we learned in a Mishnah in Mesech Shvius. Peruzbol ain't a Mishamet. Once you have a Peruzbol, so then Shmita will not take effect. Which means that usually there's a halacha of Shmitas Ksofim. When Shmita passes, so then the loans that are owed become all bottled. The malva, the lender, is not allowed to collect the loans, and you don't have to pay it at all. But if you write a Peruzbol, so then Shmita does not take effect, and the loan can be collected. Now, what is a Peruzbol? The Gemara will explain it. Let's see. But as the Mishnah there says, Zeh echad min advarim. This is one of the things, Shehiskin, Hillel Azakin, that Hillel Azakin instituted, Shera Sa'am Shenimnu Melhalvai Zeh Zeh. He saw that the people were holding back from lending money to one another when it came closer to Shemitah, Va'avra Mashakasa B'Teire, and they were transgressing on this that it says in the pasuk, Yishamalocha Peyiyah Dovam Levavcha B'Liyal V'Gaime. Be careful if there'll be any negative thought in your heart. And the pasuk there continues that you're going to say, "Oh, Shemitah is coming. How could I lend money? I'm not going to be able to collect this money." So then people were concerned about this, and they weren't lending money. So Omad Vehiskin Peruzbol. So Hillel got up and he was misakin that you write a Peruzbol, and this will allow you to collect the money even after Shemitah. Now, what is the prusbul? V'zehu gufay shel prusbul. This is what the prusbul is. Maisrani lochem ploini uploini dayanim shebemakom ploini. I'm giving over to you dayanim that are in this place. Shekol chayiv sheyeshli etzel ploini, that whatever loan I'm owed from this individual, shegbenu, that I should have the ability to collect it, kozman she'ertzeh, whenever I wish. And then va'dayanim chaysmim lamata oya edim, and the dayanim or the edim, they sign this document, and this is the prusbul. You're basically giving over your loan to the bezdin. So Rashi here says, because it says in the pasuk lo yigais, that you may not press the borrower to collect the money from him. But if you're giving it over to the bezdin, so then you're going to be able to collect. Now, there's a big machlekes rishonim over here regarding this inyan. According to Rashi, the whole inyan of prusbul is midrabanan, as it seems from the simple pshat of the Gemara. Hillel is the one that instituted it. Min ha'Torah, even giving it over to the bezdin would not help. That's what Chachamim instituted that it should help, and the Gemara will soon ask the question and address, how could it help? If min ha'Torah it doesn't help, how could Chachamim do such a thing, to go against the mitzvah of the Torah, the mitzvah of Shemitah? But there are other Rishonim that say, Taisus over here says two things. First of all, that there's something that's called Mesiras Shtaris. You actually give over all the documents of your loan to the bezdin. Taisus says that actually works min ha'Torah. You don't need a prusbul. Prusbul is when you're not giving over your documents to the bezdin. Prusbul is when you're just writing the prusbul, and you're writing that it should be as if you gave over those documents to the bezdin, but you don't actually give it over to the bezdin. The emphasis Taisus over here doesn't say this, but Taisus and Makis. This is brought in Gemara Makis as well. Over there, Taisus says that there's two different things. You look in the Mishnah there in Shvius, min ha'Torah that's giving over your shtaris to the bezdin. Midrabanan, they said, just by writing a prusbul, it's good enough. But from Rashi, it's mashma that prusbul is giving over your shtaris to the bezdin, and min ha'Torah that doesn't work. It's only a takana midrabanan.
So they collected during that time?
That by giving over your shtaris to the bezdin, you now have the power to collect it. You're sort of like a shliach of the bezdin. You have the koyach of the bezdin to come and collect it. Okay, so what's the question on this? How does Hillel have the koyach to make such a takana if there's a mitzvah of Shemitah? Fragt the Gemara, umi ikemidi de midayraise mishamta shvius. Could you say that there's such a thing? That min ha'Torah, the shvius takes effect and it absolves the loan. Now v'hiskin Hillel the loy mishamta, and Hillel was misakin that through a prusbul the Shemitah will not take effect and you could collect your loan. How could you say such a thing? Amar Abaye, so the Gemara answers, Abaye said, B'shvius b'zman hazeh. Hillel only made this takana for Shemitah b'zman hazeh, which is not min ha'Torah. V'Rebbe, and he's following the opinion of Rebbe. The Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Rebbe said, it says in the pasuk, V'zeh dvar hashmitah shamait. So it uses a double lashon. Shamait kol bal mashi yodeh, that anyone that has money to collect, he should not hold back, he should not collect. So what do you learn from the double lashon of the pasuk? B'shtei shmitas hakasav medaber. The pasuk is speaking about two shmitas that have to be compared to each other. Achas shmitas karka, the shmita that applies to the land, and v'achas shmitas ksafim, and the shmita that applies to the money. Bizman shata mishamet karka, in the time that the shmita of karka is in effect, for the land is in effect, min ha'Torah. At the mishamet ksafim, the shmita of the money that absolves the loans is also in effect. Bizman shata mishamet karka, but in the time that the shmita of the land does not apply anymore, min ha'Torah, I at the mishamet ksafim. So the shmita of the money is not in effect either. So Rashi here, Taisus here, is a big arichas, brings from the Gemara in Yerushalmi that says that at what point did the shmita of the karka stop? Already in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, at least according to Rashi and most Rishonim, in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, there was no shmita of karka min ha'Torah anymore. Why? Because the shmita's karka is connected to yovel. When there's yovel, the shmita's karka. If there's no yovel, there's no shmita's karka. And what does yovel depend on? Why? When is there yovel min ha'Torah and when not? If Roiv Yisrael are in Eretz Yisrael, the lashon of the, but it says by yovel over there in the pasuk is. There's actually, we bring the lashon by Yovel. It says when all the Yidden are in Eretz Yisrael. Just skip my mind that lashon of the pasuk over there that says that only when all the Yidden are in Eretz Yisrael, then you have the din of Yovel. But if not, then there's no din of Yovel. And when there's no din of Yovel, Kol Yeshvel Lel. That's the lashon of the pasuk. Okay? When you have Kol Yeshvel Lel, then there's Yovel. If not, there's no Yovel and there's no Shemitah. And not only is there no Shemitah for the Karka, there's no Shemitah for Kesef either. There is over here an opinion of Rabbeinu Tam and the Taisus. Most Rishonim disagree with this, but this is Rabbeinu Tam's Shitta, that in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, there still was Yovel, and there was Shemitah as well. And the Gemara over here is talking about Hillel, and Hillel actually lived in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, and Taisus is Mechadish, that Hillel, when he instituted when he instituted Peruzbal, for his times, he couldn't institute it, because Shemitah was still Min HaTorah, and he didn't have the power to go against the Shemitah Min HaTorah. But he instituted because he saw the Churban that was going to happen, and he instituted it for later, for after the Churban. Okay, this is a very big chiddush here, the shit of Rabbeinu Tam, that in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash there was still Yovel. Taisus says that the Aseres HaShvatim that were expelled from Eretz Yisrael in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, they came back. They came back, some of them at least came back, Bisman Bai Sheni, so it's considered to be Kol Yeshvei Aleh, and there still is Yovel. But most Rishonim ask on this and say that even if some of them came back, they didn't all come back. Many questions that Rishonim ask. Most Rishonim hold that in the second Beis HaMikdash there was no Kol Yeshvei Aleh, there was no Yovel, and there's no Shemitah, not Min HaTorah. Okay, so this is...
von Hillel. Ganze hier oft von das Mann als das Schmidt ist, das Stücke Schmidt ist
da mit Rabbanan. There's a Shemitah mit Rabbanan. Right? Chachamim were mesakim l'shmehir. We're mamish in the middle of the Let's see a Amud Beis. Tekinu Rabbanan the Tishamit. So Rabbanan b'zman hazeh instituted that there still should be Shemitah. Zeicha l'shvius. So it's a zeicha to the Shemitah min HaTorah. So you shouldn't forget about Shemitah. Then after this, Ra Hillel shenimnu ha'am l'al v'zezeh. After they instituted Shemitah, so Hillel saw that the people are holding back from lending money to one another. Amad ve'iskim prusbal. So then Hillel got up and was mesakim prusbal, and Hillel was able to do this because the whole Shemitah is midrabanan. So therefore, he's able to be mesakim that you can give over your loan to the bezdin, and then there's no Shemitah. But this answer itself brings up the same question now in the opposite. Could you say that there's such a thing, that min HaTorah there's no Shemitah, or tekinu Rabbanan de Tishamet, and the Rabbanan are going to come and be misaken that there should be a Shemitah? If min HaTorah there's no Shemitah here, which means that you have to pay the loan. So then you're not paying the loan. So the loiva is a gazlan. He's keeping the loan for himself. On min HaTorah he has to pay it. How could the Rabbanan come and institute a Shemitah if min HaTorah there's no Shemitah? Right? So just like we asked before regarding Prusbal, that you're being mevatel this halacha min HaTorah when you don't even owe the money and you're making him pay what he doesn't owe. The question now is the opposite. How could you say that he can keep the money if min HaTorah there's no Shemitah and he has to pay? Amar Abaye. So Abaye answers to this shev val tasahu. This is something that Chachamim do have the kayach to uproot because it's a shev al tasa. And this is a whole sugya in the Gemara in Yevamis which discusses the power of the Rabbanon to uproot things min HaTorah. And the Gemara over there says that if Chachamim are telling you to do something which is a kumbaseh, you're actively being over an aveda of the Torah, that Chachamim don't have the kayach to tell you to do. But Chachamim do have the koyach to stop you from fulfilling a mitzvah of the Torah, and the most typical and basic example is the mitzvah of shofar. When the Rosh Hashanah falls out in Shabbos, Chachamim, because of their gzeira, stopped you from blowing shofar or taking the lulav. Same thing over here. What are Chachamim doing? Chachamim are telling this person, this loiva, that you don't have to pay back your loan. Even though you have a mitzvah to pay back your loan, but you don't have to, you can just sit and not pay back. That Chachamim have the power. Rava says a different answer, and according to Rashi, this answer of Rava Omar goes back to the original question that the Gemara asked. How could Chachamim institute Prusbal to be mevatel the mitzvah of Shemitah min HaTorah? Taisva says that this Rava Omar only goes on the second question that we just asked regarding the Shemitah min Rabbanan, but Rashi says it goes back to the beginning. So Rava explains, Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker. Prusbal is based on the koyach of Bezdin, Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker. You're giving over your loan to the Bezdin, and now with the koyach of Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker, they could collect the loan, even though min HaTorah there's a din of Shemitah. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Shefker, Bezdin, Hefker. From where do we know, what's the source of this concept, that Bezdin has a koyach to be mafkir when it comes to money matters, that they can decide who the money belongs to? Shenema, the pasuk says, here this is a pasuk when the Yidden came, by the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, they came to build the second Beis HaMikdash. So the pasuk there says that Ezra, I think it was, came, or the Anshe Knesset Sagdaila, they said all Yidden have to gather and come to Yerushalayim. And then they said, whoever's not going to come within the next 3 days, as the Sodom and the Zekanim, they advise that all Yidden should come, Yochram kol rechushay, All of his possessions will be taken away from him, and will be separated from the congregation, from all Yidden. So the pasuk here says, Yachrim kol rechushay, that they have a power to take away anyone's possession if he doesn't listen, if he doesn't come. So we see here the concept of hefker bezn hefker. Another source the Gemara brings, Rabbi Lazar says, Rabbi Lazar Amar mehacha. And this is from much earlier, by the Nachla, when Yeshua divided, and the siyum of each one of the Shvatim, they divided the Nachla for the Shvatim. So the pasuk says, Eila hanachlois asher nachlo Elazar HaKohen v'Yeshua ben Nun. Elazar HaKohen Yeshua ben Nun divided the Nachla for the Yidden, and then it says v'Rashei ha'avos v'Gomer. Why does the pasuk use the term v'Rashei ha'avos? It should have said Rashei hamatos, which is the usual term. So what's avos here? V'chima inyin Roshim eitzel avos. Why does it use the term Roshim, the leaders of the Shvatim, but it says the Roshim of the fathers? Why fathers? It's teaching you just like when it comes to a father, he can decide what to give, he can decide to divide his properties amongst his children as he wishes. So to the heads of the Shvatim, give the portion for the people, for the Shvatim, exactly how they desire. And this is the kayach for this is based on hefke bez nefke. Here we see this concept that the Roshim, they are able to divide and decide, even though it belongs to the Eden, but they can decide how to divide it as they wish. The Shaila was asked regarding the takana of Pruzbal. Ki hiskin Hillel Pruzbal. When Hillel instituted the takana of Pruzbal, l'darehu the takin, did he only institute it for his generation? Or Hillel instituted it for all future generations? And the Gemara explains, Lamai nafkimina. What's the difference between whether he did it for his generation or future generations? Levatule, whether you can nullify this takana. If you're going to say that he instituted it for his generation, so then you're able to be mevatel, this takana of Prozbal. So the Ran over here explains, if he only made it for his generation, why do you have to be mevatel? As soon as his generation is over, shouldn't the takana expire? So the Ran says that pshat in the Gemara is l'darei yodetikon means that he only made it because of the reason that the Gemara said before, that he saw in his generation people are not lending money. So it's based on that reason. So if it's another generation that the same reason applies, then the takana will apply. But if the reason does not apply anymore, so then the takana does not apply. So the Gemara, when it says mivatlinan le, means that the Chacham would have to assess whether the reason still applies, and if it does not apply, they'll be mivatlit. But if you're going to say that he instituted this for all generations, so then it doesn't make a difference if the reason applies or not. He made it a takana that in any time period you're allowed to make a prusbal. And then there's a rule, a later bezdin cannot nullify something that an earlier bezdin already instituted, unless this later bezdin is greater than the earlier bezdin, both with wisdom and numbers, which is really not feasible, really not possible, or not common at least. A later generation, a later bezdin is usually not greater in wisdom and in numbers to be able to uproot what an earlier bezdin did. There's a big arichas here in Taisus about this. One of the points Taisus says of here is, this is when the takana was nispashet in Klal Yisrael. If the takana was not nispashet, if the takana was not accepted amongst Klal Yisrael, so then even a later bezdin that's smaller than a previous bezdin could be mevatel this. And the example for this is a takana of shem and akum. Just like there's a takana not to eat cholav akum, pas akum, bishul akum, there was also originally a takana not to eat oil that comes from Goyim. But because it wasn't nispashet in Klal Yisrael, it wasn't accepted, so therefore a later bezdin was mevatlet, even though the later bezdin was a smaller bezdin. But over here, the Gemara is saying that if this takana of Pruzbal was already nispashet, everyone accepted it, so then you're going to need a greater bezdin in wisdom and size in order to be mevatlet. Tashema, so I'll bring a raya, the Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Loi kasvinen Pruzbal. You can't write a Pruzbal, ele ibe beidina de surah, unless you're in a bezdin of surah, which is where Rav was, and he had a proper, good, strong, prominent bezdin, or ibe beidina de nerda, or in the bezdin of nerda, which is where Shmuel himself was. So you have to have a very big bezdin, a very strong bezdin. If you're going to say that Hillel was misakin for all future generations, that you can always make a Pruzbal, you're giving over your loan to the bezdin. So b'shar beidin and ami lichtable. You should have the ability to write the Pruzbal for any bezdin. Why do you have to have such a special bezdin? So what is the Gemara trying to prove from here? So it must be that Hillel made his takana only for his generation. Elamai, if you have a special bezdin that has a koyach of hefker bezdin hefker, this koyach of hefker bezdin hefker is not for any bezdin. Just you can't take any three people and then say and use the koyach of hefker bezdin hefker. You have to have a very chosh of a bezdin for hefker bezdin hefker. So then you'll be able to make a prusbul. But otherwise, the takana of Hillel is bottle. So the Gemara answers, no, there's no raya from here because Dilme kitakin Hillel lidari alma. It maybe Hillel did make his takana of prusbul for all future generations, but how did he make his takana? Kagoin bei dina didei, but the whole takana originally was it has to be a strong bezdin like his own, like Hillel's bezdin, or ukravami v'ravasi, or like a bezdin of Ravami and Ravasi. Rashi says this was the bezdin that was around in the time when this shaila was asked. That are very strong, that they have the koyach of hefke bezdin hefke to take out money from people. But for any other plain bezdin, they did not make. The Hillel did not make this takana. Toshima. I'll try to bring another eye here for this, whether the takana was only for the generation of Hillel or for later on. Shmuel said, "Ha prusbele, this prusbel ulbene the dainihu." This is a ulbene. Ulbene, we'll say the Gemara will soon type the word ulbene, but ulbene means it's embarrassing or it's not appropriate for the best. The Gemara will soon type more what ulbene means. Now, if I would have the power of atline, I would get rid of this whole concept of prusbel. So the Gemara asks, how could he do this? Avatline, how could Shmuel say that he would get rid of the takana of prusbel that Hillel instituted? A later bezin cannot uproot what a previous bezin already instituted. Unless you're greater in wisdom and numbers. So it must be that Hillel only instituted the takana of prusbel for his generation, or when the reason applies. But then Shmuel came and looked and assessed the situation and saw that the reason doesn't apply, so he wanted to be mevatlit. So the Gemara says, no, it's not a raya. Hachi ka'ama, this is what he meant to say. He was saying, if I were smarter and stronger and bigger than Hillel, then I would be mevatlit. But in reality, I can't, because Hillel made the takana for all generations. Now Rav Nachman had a different version for this. But Rav Nachman, or Rav Nachman himself actually, said differently. But Rav Nachman said, akaymina. No, I would validate, I would keep the takana of Hillel. Fragt the Gemara, why is he saying that? Akaymina, he's saying that he would validate, he would keep the takana. Hamekayim v'koy, the takana is here. If you're going to say Hillel made the takana for all future generations, so the takana is here. Says the Gemara, Hachi Ka'amar. This is what Rav Nachman meant to say. Eime ba milse. I would add something to this takana. I would make it much easier, and I would say da'afagav le'kosov k'kosov dami. Even if you don't actually write a prusbul, every loan it's built in automatically as if there's a prusbul there that the loan, if it's going to pass shmita, it's given over to the bezin to be able to collect it. The Gemara comes back into this lashon of ulbene. We said before, Ibayaluhu, the shaila was asked, hi ulbene. When it said before that a prusbul is a ulbene for the bezin. What does the word ulbene mean? Lishne, the chutzpah, who? Does the word ulbene mean that it's a chutzpah for the bezin to do such a thing? That you're coming and collecting a loan, which really, there's a shmita and you're not supposed to collect it. So it's like a very audacious thing, it's a very big chutzpah. Or actually, maybe the word ulbene means that this is a convenient thing for the bezin. So Rashi explains, why is a prusbul a convenient thing for the bezin? Because imagine if there would be no prusbul. So right before Shemitah, there would be a run on the money. Everybody would want to collect their loans before Shemitah comes, and Bezin would be so busy trying to help everybody collect their loans, and sometimes it can be difficult to collect your loans, and it would be hard for the Bezin. So making a prusbul just makes things convenient for the Bezin. Maybe that's what it means. So the Gemara says, Tashema brings this lashon of ulbene from another place, a completely different subject, but you see what this word ulbene means. The Alma Ola said regarding the Chet Egel, when Yidden sinned right after Matan Torah, Aluva kala, a kala that shazinsa b'kerev chopasa, a kala that sins, that is mizana, right over there by the chuppah is embarrassed. Should be embarrassed of this, or it's a chutzpah. That's really what it means. What a chutzpah, a kala right over there by the chuppah, it goes and is mizana. And this is what Klal Yisrael did right over there. They were still by Har Sinai. They didn't leave yet Har Sinai. They only left Har Sinai much later. And right over there, Yidden made the egel right after Matan Torah. So we see that the word aluva does not mean convenience, but aluva means that it's a chutzpah. Amrav Mari Berad Bashmul. My Kara, what's the pasuk that speaks about this, that the Yidden did there by the Chet Egel? Ad Shahamelech b'Mesibai, when the king is still sitting around by the table with the festive meal with his guest, near the Nasan Reichai. The Besamim, Nasan Reicha over here means in the negative, that it lost its good smell, and it gives off, it lost its smell, it let go of its good aroma. So over here as well, Yidden are still sitting with the Eibishter by Har Sinai, and they allowed the effect of Matan Torah to leave them. But Omar Rave, on this Rave said, or Rav, others are going to say, Adayin Chavivusa Hu Gabon. But the love of the Eibishter is still with us. Why? The Chsiv Nosan, because the Eibishter writes that the pasuk is written in a refined way. It says Nosan, that it gave away its smell. V'loi Chsiv is Sriach. It could have said a much more stronger, harsher term, that is Sriach, that it became mamish a foul odor. But the pasuk didn't say that term. Why? Because the Eibishter still loves Yidden even after the Chet Egel. Tana Rabbanan, one more thing here, the Gemara brings regarding this expression of aluva, and here the Taich is seemingly a bit differently. Maybe it's connected to the same inyan. So we learned in the Braisa, Haneh Lovim, those people that are humiliated or are embarrassed. I guess also connected to chutzpah, someone that acts chutzpahdik against you and talks to you in this manner and he embarrasses you. Ve'ein anoilvin. Huh? Ve'ein anoilvin, and you don't embarrass back, you don't answer back. Shaimin cherpasan, they hear their shame, ve'ein meshivin, and they don't respond. Oisin me'ava, they fulfill mitzvahs, loving the Eibishter, and smeichim b'yisurim, and they accept with joy any pain that the Eibishter brings upon them. Alei and Akosta Vaymer, regarding them, the pasuk says, V'oyavav, those that love the Eibishter could say, Hashemesh b'gvurasai, like the sun that comes out in its might and its great might. Alter Rebbe actually brings this in Tanya, in Perich Chavav, that the people that accept Yisurim ba'ava and B'zman Hazeh, lost love, it'll be zeicha to the greatest giluyim, and that's what the says Hashemesh b'gvurasai means.